from the tight schedules and deadlines, escape from the traffic after work, let down our hair and unwind. It's the 3FM Corporate Connect. So join us every month for the biggest outdoor corporate hangout to de-stress, unwind, and network. As you're driving to work this morning, you're probably thinking about all the wahala that awaits you. Some of you have emails waiting for you, reports, some interesting co-workers or two, and so on and so forth. William Mesiedu, good morning to you. You know what it's like when you have a stressful work life. Even before you've arrived at work, you are already,
They don't broadcast.
I wake you up.
And you come to work, if you're not careful, the little thing. So it's always good to have some time to unwind.
Yes, that's
Whether
important.
Whether you're bald or backbush, you have to let your hair down.
Whether you're bald or backbush, tonight, come and unwind with us. So come and meet CEOs, top business execs, entrepreneurs, and like-minded people at the most exciting corporate networking event in Accra. It's the 3FM Corporate Connect. Side attractions include fun games, tasty grills over chilled, refreshing drinks, rib-cracking stand-up comedy, and non-stop jams by our seasoned DJs and guest IT. So join us. Again, it's the 3FM Corporate Connect. It's happening tonight, 26th of May at the Gold Coast Restaurant, not far from where we are. Gold Coast Restaurant from 5 p.m. Unwind, network, laugh out loud. For more inquiries and sponsorship, do take down this number, 0244 405 027. One more time, it's 02444 05027. All roads lead to the Gold Coast Restaurant after work this evening. Come and let's hang out, let's unwind, let's chill. Big thanks to DJ Abiam this morning on the ones and twos, treating us to some great morning. Let's get into the news review right about now. Myself and William, we've got a selection of papers in front of us. We'll run through the headlines and then we'll take some details. The Daily Graphic this morning has this to say: SHS food suppliers demand payment. Finance Ministry arranges to settle some 275 million cedis arrears. Task force to enforce ban on noise making. You know that the ban on noise making has been enforced for some time now. It's still on. And JUSAC strike halts justice delivery. The strike is still very much ongoing. And the deactivation and removal of active unregistered SIMs is the 31st of May. So there is a countdown here by the Daily Graphic. They say you've got 5 days to go. So for those of you who are yet to do your re-registration, 5 more days and you will no longer have that number. On the back page of the Daily Graphic, Ghana Met predicts heavy rain in northern Ghana. Hopefully next week when we're able to speak with Felicity, we'll get an update on what the month ahead looks like. Daily Guide has this to say. Now, this story has piqued my interest since I saw it making the rounds on social media. TikTok couple arrested for killing son. And it's a couple who were posting videos on TikTok. They are very interesting appearance, and some of the things and content of the TikTok raised some alarm bells, and then it surfaced that allegedly some of their children have passed away or have been maltreated, but they've been arrested following the social media detective work that was carried out. We'll get into that as we progress. And I have no intention to divest GNPC stake, Freddie Blay on the front page of the Daily Guide, former NPP national chair. Doche now acting CJ as judicial staff strike. NPP presidential nominees to pay some 50,000 cedis. The nominations open today. And Nana pushes for more intra-African trade. Lastly, the Ghanaian Observer. Akufo-Addo charges African leaders to work together to guarantee food and economic security. It's captured on pages 9 and 10. We'll get into that. Baumia Lords Bank of Ghana. NPP opens nomination for flag bearer election, and government tightens compliance of RTI law. There is some more, of course, when you check out 3news.com. There's business news, sports, entertainment, world, politics, you name it.
And this morning, the Finder is reporting on the front page. ECOWAS heads of immigration services deliberate on implementation of ECO visa. We'll get into the details very soon. And MPP opens flag bearer nomination today. Details of 3-year IMF program, Bank of Ghana to exit gold for oil policy, and also to reverse 20% gold surrender policy. Right to information compliance to be included in performance agreement of heads of public institutions. That's on the front page of the Finder. ABC News, race to lead MPP. Nomination opens today. Ready, get set, go. Accra, NDC chairman accused of pocketing Mahama cash for delegates. And Supreme Court summons Pesa White over stupid court comments. That does it for the ABC. And the Republic Press. I'll take that again slowly. The Republic Press. Pesa White is still here. He's in hot soup for allegedly insulting Supreme Court judges. Brouhaha over Petrosa deal. Freddie Blay fights CSOs. Courts shut down as JUSAC carries out threats. Suppliers for school feeding bare teeth at government over indebtedness, and 23-year-old married man arrested for allegedly sleeping with a goat.
Oh, goodness me, we've run through those, but that is
the greatest of all time.
Greatest of all time.
I won't go to the spot. This one is the livestock goods.
The Ghanaian Observer this morning truth stance.
John, we've run through those headlines. Right, yes. Sure. So we'll get stuck into it. The Daily Graphic talking about the SHS food suppliers' demand of payment. Well, the Finance Ministry has arranged to settle some 275 million cedis arrears. Now, the National Food Buffer Stock Company Limited, NAFCO, has appealed to the Ministry of Finance to fast-track processes for the release of some 275 million cedis to pay food suppliers under the Free Senior High School Free SHS policy. The Chief Executive Officer, CEO of NAFCO, Hanan Abdul Wahab, said the prompt release of the amount was needed to clear outstanding payments for 2022 and part of this year. The Minister of Education wrote a letter to the Minister of Finance on May 4 this year for the payment of validated payment requests made by suppliers. Follow-ups were being made with the hope that money will be released so we can clear arrears for food supplies made in 2022 and this year, he said in an interview with the Daily Graphic. The concerns are still there. This issue about food, what is the issue? Why can we pay for our children to eat? What is holding us back?
I don't think that the administration, not just the government, but also the education authorities are being very forthright with us. We even had to, at some point after COVID, when all restrictions had been lifted, we even prevented parents from going to the schools to go and visit their children, because the issues were coming up and parents were getting to know that the children were not being fed well. So, on visitations, as we have always known, home chore and the rest would come, but it was coming in frequently because the children were complaining. And a case in point is the recent one in Avrongo, the Our Lady of Lord's School, who were complaining about the fact that they are being fed rice. I said that that more than a year ago, that the children have rice porridge in the morning, they have plain rice in the afternoon, maybe jollof in the evening, or every day is rice. And that in itself, if we also customize to when the school feeding caterers went on strike, and I asked them what kind of protein do they feed the children. I was talking about carrot and onions and green pepper and the rest.
That's right.
So clearly that there's that protein component that's missing, and what it means if you eat rice continuously like that without the proteins and other nutrients that you need, you are inviting berry upon your life. So that's one leg of it. I think that we have politicized education to the point that even when we have to pause and reflect and say that this is not good, we need to change it, let's look at it, it becomes a problem. Then the other side will say, hey, that's it, but we told you didn't listen. And say, hey, so that's where we find ourselves, honestly. I mean, and the buffer stock itself is indebted, very, very much indebted.
That's right.
I mean, so if they claim that everything is going on well, and yet they are indebted, then how do we marry the two? Is marks of not keeping an eye on the ball, being very political about everything, and trying to explain everything away with English. It doesn't work like that. I
agree with that. Well, we see if that monies can be paid by the finance ministry, but it's become a recurring story. Although I recall I've mentioned this before last year when we spoke with the Deputy Minister of Information,
Abubakar.
Yes, Madam Fati. She said, these incidents are isolated, but as we've come to see, that is not the case. It is not isolated. The school feeding
caterers are still on strike, and that's into the 5th or 6th week, maybe 7th week that they've been on strike. What does that mean? What does that? How does that impact on education and the learning outcomes that the IMF had us, know in their reports? They indicated to us, for example, that we have neglected the basic school. We are focusing on the secondary schools, and even that we are poorly implementing it. So there's a big conundrum that has to be answered. We need to put the experts in one room, listen to the professors who have spoken. Professor Stephen Adair has asked for a review. Professor Ivan Adaimes has asked for a review. Professor Ernest Aiti has asked for a review. Professor Jane Nano Pokwajima has asked for a review, and I decided to bring her last because again people will say, she's political and blah blah blah. But what about these three who are known and connected to the NPP? Professor Adair served under this government for a long time, but that doesn't take away his his academic genuity to make such calls and comments. And they are not alone. The likes of Kofi Asari at Africa Education World, the likes of Bright Apia, Child Rights International, Peter Patti, and they have all made calls. Why is it becoming difficult for the government to listen? Maybe now that the IMF has said it, maybe the government will listen because there's money tied to it, and that money is supposed to take us out of a certain hole.
We live to see. Speaking about money, this one captured under the business portion. Ghana remains competitive in West Africa, but losing ground to Senegal and Cote d'Ivoire. Now, key leaders from the Ghana Netherlands Business and Culture Council, GNBCC, and the European Chamber of Commerce have affirmed Ghana's position as the leading destination for foreign direct investment and trade. The country emerged as the country with the highest competitiveness score in West Africa. They, however, cautioned that Senegal and Cote d'Ivoire were fast gaining ground, and Ghana had to redouble its efforts to remain competitive. These remarks by the General Manager of the Ghana Netherlands Business and Culture Council, Chaling Uyada, and Executive Director of the European Chamber of Commerce, Nicholas Gabara, during an expert panel webinar to mark European Union Day. They say the panelists were emphatic that despite major challenges, Ghana remained an oasis of peace and security in ECOWAS, and thus continued to be preferred. They do say more has to be done in that regard. I guess it's some good news to know that we still have, investors that want to come to Ghana to do business. They find it attractive. They talk about peace and there being relative stability. And of course, we want that to continue. But with the way that things are going, the projections for this year and also for next year, we could definitely find ourselves wanting. We have to safeguard this position that we find ourselves in, that we're still getting some goodwill. Finance Minister says we are the star of Africa. How do we safeguard that position?
Well, at the end of the day, if the investors are finding Ghana still attractive, is because a lot of the countries in the sub-region, especially in West Africa, are still facing the issue of terrorism, political instability. And an investor will look at not just the political environment, but the fact that if I start a business today, if a new government comes, they will not come and change the legislation around that area so that I'll lose my business. So for that, Ghana is still solid because we are still democratic. We go to the polls every 4 years. People don't come and change the law just to suit the situations that they find themselves. But so then businesses will find it very, very good to come here. And then if they invest $50,000 in, say, plastic manufacturing business, they know that if another party comes, they will not come and change the policy. So if they say there's stability for investors, that's what they look at.
Gotcha.
Because there are some countries that may be autocratic, may be doing that, dictatorship and things like that, but their policies on business is constant and solid. And that's something that all of us should pay attention to. So for investors, the stability that they talk about is not just the political climate, but in terms of law, in terms of company law, in terms of import laws, custom duty, all those things are stable. And that's something that we must pay attention to.
I honestly also think that if you cast your mind back to about a year ago or so, you had companies, multinationals who were in this country folded up and saying bye-bye to Ghana. That was because their outlook was not too good. Now, with the advent of the IMF deal, you do know that then some bit of a confidence has come in, because then they know that somebody will be looking over the shoulders of government and telling them, do this, do that, don't do this, don't do that, don't do this, don't do that. And I agree with William that if I'm a businessman, I'm going to pump my money into your country in the name of foreign direct investment. You're going to give me a quota system on how many people to employ. I pay all my taxes and everything else. I would need some bit of assurance to settle my mind, because I may have gone for a facility somewhere to be investing in your country, which is very, very critical. However, we need to also start engineering to see how, yes, it's good to have foreign direct investment, but locally, how many of our people are very much interested in doing business to a very, very large extent? Dangote opened one of the biggest refineries in the world, in Africa and all of that. He's a private person, costs more than 20 billion. We are looking for $3 billion to bring our economy back on track. It tells you how, if the government allows for the right processes and the right things to go on, the assurances and everything else, people will be willing to push in, a lot more money. There are rich people in Ghana. What they are not too sure of, that people may tag them as political, and so after they have put in their investment and another government comes, what happens to my investment? Hey, it's not free money, it's my hard-earned money. So it's good news that we're looking at it from that direction, but also to the extent that we are doing things. For example, we started this whole see something, say something campaign.
That's right.
And then we started telling the citizens that, look, all around us there's chaos. We are the only peaceful, hub around here. People would want to come to you, but how are we safeguarding that peace and tranquility? How are we making sure that the guns in the wrong hands have been taken away? Look at what's happening in Boku, for example. That is, if you like, a starter for all that is bad, if you ask me, because there are guns there, sporadic gunshots happening here and there. People are being killed, including security, officials. And you ask yourself how people are tapping into it from outside, all these jihadist groups and all these terrorist groups and everything else. So it's not just about the peace and tranquility, but how do we sustain it? How do we safeguard it? I think that should be central to the conversation, because if somebody comes in, they invest, they are not getting the returns because there is no peace, and then everything is lost. And I think we take the peace that we have in Ghana for granted most often, because we think that, Ghana is peaceful. Everybody says Ghana is peaceful. Our Nigerian brothers come and say, it's peaceful here. You can walk at 12:30 a.m. Nothing will happen to you. All those conversations. So we seem to think that, there's really then not much that we have to do to safeguard it, because Charlie, we are free. We are okay. But And yeah, better, sir.
No, and security experts will tell you wherever there's conflict, you breed fertile ground for the infiltration of persons who have some very radical ideas, especially where young men and women don't have jobs to do. And we know the devil finds work for idle hands. And we've been warned that possible terror is around the corner. It's something we can't ease our foot off the pedal on at all.
I also think that, yes, while we're happy about these investments, it's also important to target the investments. I mean, you can't say that because you're hungry, anything that is served to you, even if you have allergies and all of that, you may not like the food, it may give you trouble with your tummy, you will eat it because you're hungry. I mean, that would not be a wise decision to make. So these investors that are coming in, yes, they will bring jobs. They will get tax holidays, or they may get tax holidays.
That's right.
How do we benefit from it? What kinds of jobs are they bringing? Are people interested in those jobs? And does it fall in line with the national vision of industrialization? In which direction? Are they coming to assemble, for example, vehicles here and then finish and repatriate all the funds back to their country?
That's a big one.
Or are they going to be putting up factories that will be manufacturing the things that we import, so that we get so much to take care of ourselves and then export the rest and make some good forex? These are conversations that we need to have. But if we just put it out blanketly like that, the investors have come, what benefit does it bring to us?
And I think that's the more important aspect of the conversation. I think that's a great point, Johnny, to not just look at it, as you say, as a blanket statement. What is the nature of the business? Yeah. How many Ghanaians are going to be employed? What does it do for us? It's something that is harming our environment, for example. Are investors also attracted to Ghana because they know that, with the right connections, we can be lax with some of our rules and regulations? That is also another angle that I think should be important to us. That why is everybody coming here? Is it just because we're peaceful, stable, and a great place for business, or are there other reasons that we should be paying attention to?
Recently, sorry, William, the GRA embarked on a certain drive where companies that had defaulted in VAT, they were actually charging VAT and not paying back to the GRA what they're supposed to pay. There have been reports of many of these foreigners who come into the country, and with the connivance of locals, they get into stuff like that, either VAT, or they are not paying the right taxes here because they have people fronting for them and claiming to be the owners of the business and all of that. All of that disadvantages the country. It puts us in a certain fix because every single pesewa that is made here counts, and if the government can get its own fair share of whatever pesewa is made here, I think it's only fair. It's nice, and it makes us grow quickly and rapidly.
So quite clearly, we talk about the economics of things and we forget about the finances of things, because if the economic picture is created that Ghana is expecting more, the economy is expanding because of exports. Financially, how does that hit? How much hits our account as a government, or as a country? How much? Because all the big companies are foreign. Telcos, oil, even cocoa, even in that cocoa space, how many Ghanaians have the money to buy a lot of the beans and export? So the IMF bailout program clearly shows that although we are doing well in terms of exports, direct investments and all that, as a country, our finances are not getting better because we are not getting hold of our resources and making the best of. And it's not just Ghana. The whole of Africa is suffering, especially sub-Saharan Africa is suffering from that, if you like, disease. So it is for us to also come down, engage all stakeholders, and this winner takes all things is also hurting us because during the campaign, when we interviewed Dr. Dufo, he made the point that in February he made a call. He has a IFS, it's economic think tank. They made the approach that will be a lot of individuals in the system who can help. If you look at all the things that the IMF is telling us, it just tells that we are not a proud nation as we said we were.
Right.
We are not capable as we said we were. This morning we are hearing that the Bank of Ghana is to exit the good for oil policy. This good for oil policy, from day one, we said it was opaque. There was no transparency. And these are some of the things that will happen. And people will make money. You hear a lot of big numbers. But at the end of the day, the money doesn't hit
I hope the vice president will come back now that we are exiting this program, because on its inception he addressed us to say, well, gold for oil was introduced on this day. These are the savings we made from that. Yes, he said this one you can't find it in textbooks. He said something that's never been done. This is the barter trade system. He said you won't find this one in textbooks, only to find that it was a two-pronged approach. That is not only gold for oil, but it's gold and cash for oil. What impact that had? He was quick to announce that the gold for oil was working when we saw some reduction in the prices of petroleum products at the fuel pumps. That was the one time he came back and said, well, you see, we are making an impact. We were told by experts that there were other factors involved. Then we saw it go sort of slightly up, slightly down. We haven't heard from him. Now that we're exiting, I think it would be prudent of him to come and outline the entire process, what we got from it. But you're laughing, so I think I should
very, very
hold
hopeful.
my I should hold
hopeful. I like your sense of hope. It's good. I like it. I enjoy it, actually. Yeah. I enjoy it. Your sense of hope.
We move. Where there's life, there's hope.
Who told you that the vice president did not know that the Bank of Ghana was going to have this put on the front pages and all of that? I mean, before any policy comes, I mean, what's actually even in the detail of the gold for oil? Have you seen the policy document? Because the minority side in Parliament have been asking to see the policy document guiding the gold for oil. It's a policy you are putting in, we have put in place on our behalf. So whether there are benefits or costs, it comes to us.
That's right.
We do not know the details of the policy. Same thing, we did not know the details of the free SHS policy. Same thing, we did not know the details of NAPCO policy until after a few years of implementation before we got the document, which suggests that, well, the policy was still being fine-tuned, as we traveled along. And when the government thought that it was safe, then it gives you the policy. But if you want me to actually have an honest assessment of you give me the policy document right from the get-go. And then as you implement, I'm able to say, okay, you're getting this right, you're not getting this right, you're getting that right, you're not getting that right. This gold for oil thing, it has to be investigated.
I agree with that.
The office of the special prosecutor and Shraj and everybody, they have to get in there.